Okay, ready for you. Go ahead.
Okay, Rich, take you back to the thing I asked you Saturday, but now you've been able to watch film. Give me the film analysis of the offensive line.
I think we certainly played a little bit better. I think we came. The point of emphasis has been coming off the ball a little bit better for our O-line, our tight ends, our wideouts, everybody on offense. And I thought we did that to some degree. Came off the ball a little better, ran a little bit harder, blocked a little better on the perimeter. So that all helped.
But there's still progress that can be made.
Oh, sure. There was a couple easy pass protection things we gave up on a couple of passes. But those guys are, to our line all year, it wasn't just last week. They've been very conscientious. I mean, they want to be good. They're listening to anything that stuff we're telling them. But again, last week, the biggest thing all week for us was just, I didn't think we were just coming off the ball as hard as we could. And they tried to do that all week in practice and did a better job of that in the game.
The play that Haslam did, I don't know how you differentiate that from the tush push, but does it demonstrate the fight and the willingness to fight for your teammates?
I think so. I mean, it was you can't pull, but you can push. My argument was that he wasn't pulling him; he was carrying him. So that's a little different dynamic. But he, what was nice that I saw a clip later that I think Raquel showed me that you could see the sidelines of motion when that happened, because it got him for a first down, and you could see everybody was into the game, which is, to me, the thing we've been trying to get all year, and it's been a work in progress. But having everybody on our sidelines engaged, totally engaged in every play, and it bothers me when that's not the case. And I think at least in that moment, you could see everybody who was in the picture on the sidelines was totally engaged in that play. That's what we got to do all the time.
But does that demonstrate the fight that he's filling the fight for his teammates?
I think so a little bit. I mean, you'd rather everybody block so that it wouldn't be so hard to get the first down on that one, But Donovan's played hard, and he's making the most of his opportunity. He got a little banged up in that game, but I've said all along, playing hard is kind of non-negotiable, and even when we weren't playing well, we were playing hard for the most part. But there was a game or two where I didn't think we really played as hard as what our standard is, and we've got to learn from that.
Now that you've had time to go watch the tape, how do you think Scotty performed?
I thought he played pretty well, especially for a true freshman. He's growing up. I think he's taking steps. And he played beyond his years, I think, in the last two games. You wouldn't think he's a true freshman that got thrust into that role. I think he was seeing the field. He was making good decisions. There was a couple things here and there that were kind of looked like freshman deals, but he's a really good competitor. He's a very conscientious guy, and I've said since August that he might be the most talented from arm strength, arm talent that we have on the roster. And he made some next level throws in that game.
Rich, when a team loses a couple of games in a row, it's easy for a locker room to give up. Your team didn't. How did you keep everyone bought in, and especially in this era of college football where at the end of the season they can just transfer and leave?
Well, it's harder now. Every week I think most coaches will tell you every week it's a battle. When you set the culture and it's really set in, you don't have to worry about that. It's going to take care of itself, right? Well, it's taken us no question, it's taken us longer to really get what we wanted there. But there wasn't really a total in the bad area. A couple weeks ago in the Central Florida game, I was upset because we did not just play well, but I didn't think our effort was to the standard which we expect our guys. And then the last couple weeks it has been. But we practiced a little bit differently, but we just brought it up more that, I think it's natural. It's easy to, everybody gravitates to average. And then from an effort standpoint, we expect above average all the time. And I told the staff we can't let up until that's the case. And we got closer to there, but there's still a level we got to get to. We're not completely where we need to be from that standpoint yet.
Rich, since it is year one, and obviously it's been a roller coaster ride season, what would it mean for just you coming back, the progression of, it's a different era now, everyone's talking about the playoff, but to make a bowl game, if you went out and make a bowl game, what would that mean to you in the program to make that happen?
Well, just from the depths of down below to that would be remarkable. But I don't even really mention that because I told our guys, you got to be singular focused on what's next. And for our guys, it's today's practice, and then Saturday it'll be Colorado at home. So I think the big picture wise, I'll look at it maybe for 5 minutes, but I'm too busy and our players are too busy getting worried about it. And I think that's the biggest thing for us is, and I've told them even when we're losing in a game, whatever, you can't look up at the scoreboard and wonder what's happening next. You just got to play the next play and compete. The whole thing that I don't want to say it's a problem here because it's not really a problem, but it's probably something that happens across the country. It's just the lack of competitiveness at times is what really drives me crazy. I mean, from whether it's in practice or a game, and I know everybody's not wired to be that ultra competitive guy, the Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Larry Bird kind of competitive, Tom Brady kind of competitiveness, but that's part of my job as coaching is we got to try to foster that, instill that, teach that, whatever it is, if a guy doesn't have it naturally. We have some guys that have it naturally, but for a lot of guys, it's not natural to be like uber competitive, and that bothers me. So we gotta keep working on it.
Rich, back to Scotty real quick. What's the next step in his progression? Where do you still want him to grow?
Yeah, he's still learning about seeing the whole field a little bit. He gets to the point where, and he's really sharp and learning, but it's his first year and he's a true freshman. When you can anticipate the checks or anticipate maybe what the next call is going to be or anticipate the adjustment we're going to make on a certain route or a certain run, whatever, then he's getting it. And so that part of it, it usually takes a guy, a year or two to get that down, especially a younger guy. If you get an older, like a Tyler Huff at Jack State last year, he was an older guy that had been around and, very mature and smart. It took him a few weeks, but once that third or fourth game, like he was finishing my sentences, so to speak. You know what I mean? And he had college football experience. Scotty is a true freshman that's going to get there eventually someday, and he's conscientious enough to get there as quick as we can.
What concerns you about Colorado? I mean, it doesn't look necessarily like it's a talent issue. They're
really athletic. You're very athletic. I mean, just if you can look at their roster in the last couple of years as opposed to when they first got there a couple of years ago. I mean, at every position, they're way more athletic, really big and athletic up front on offense. I know one of their linebackers, he played for us at Jack State, Reggie Hughes, is a really good athlete. We try to get him too, so it's, they've really upgraded their talent level. And, they're probably like, when you lose a couple games, maybe lose a little confidence, but I'm sure their coaches are getting them right for this week.
What's your relationship, if at all, with Coach Prime just over the years?
Yeah, I've only met him, I think, once. I talked to him, I think, a long time ago when he was kind of helping mentor Noel Devine, way back in the day, both from Fort Myers. Other than that, just met him at the Big 12 Media Day stuff. But and he's, and they may have had a couple tough games, but if you look at where the program was when he got there a couple years ago and the profile they're at right now, has done an amazing job to get Colorado to that level.
Hey, Rich, Scotty, the next couple of games, how does his performance, one way or the other, change how you approach the offseason and what you want to do to that room?
Well, it's every position. We're in a couple of weeks we have an open date. We're going to evaluate the whole roster because signing date for high school guys is the first Wednesday in December, and so we don't have a whole lot of game after our last game to get ready for that. So we're obviously every day we recruit, but we're also evaluating our current roster every day, and then during the open day, we're going to have a deep dive into everybody at every position that's currently on the team and how we think about it going forward. So nowadays it's crazy. You think, okay, you're going to have, maybe 7 or 8 free agents, right, on your team. If you're a pro team, you might have that to decide on. We basically have everybody that's a free agent, right? And that's how crazy and nutty this college athletic rosters are nowadays. So we've got to our guys. We told them that we'll probably scrimmage the young guys a little bit during the open date as well. Maybe even some this week, just to kind of get an evaluation of them, other than being on a scout team. So it's not just the quarterbacks or Scotty's performance that's getting looked at. It's everybody every day.
The decision to kick the field goal, it was like right in that weird spot. 4th and 6 is maybe a big bite. You're on the plus side of the field. Was that a numbers thing? Was that a field thing? Why did you go that way? Because it seemed like it made a difference in the end.
You talking about Cade's 50-yarder? Yeah, his our strength. I thought his range was probably closer to around 45, but he had a little breeze behind him, I think, and the special teams coaches felt he could get it for 50. And I think if it was 51, it would have been tight. But at 50, it just got over the goalpost. So he struck it well, and it was good to come out with some points with that one. But we had a little breeze that way. But that was a big momentum kick. At least we got points out of that deal. At the end of the game, it was that we could have kicked the field goal and tried to go up 13, but it's still 2 scores. And then if we get a first down, you win the game. And so that was more my thought. Let's try to win the game right here. Get a short yardage run, and we just barely got it. It was good.
Performance of your running backs, Dior and Sincere. We're talking about Scotty getting more comfortable. Does the same thing apply to that?
Yeah, they're just learning how to, a little bit. They weren't being tentative because they were being soft. They were just being tentative because they truly didn't understand how the play was supposed to be run, where they're supposed to press it, and so when they just finally trusted that standpoint and ran with a little bit more conviction, like the best running backs make you tackle them. They don't go down just because somebody hits you. They physically make you wrap them up and tackle them. And I thought Dior, especially in that game, he ran until they tackled him, and that's something that all good backs will do.
Rich, you mentioned coming off the ball. How did you feel about the performance of your tight ends?
I thought the tight ends, particularly the perimeter blocking, was a whole lot better, and we challenged them. You're not real big. You don't have 250, 60-pound guys. They're 220, 230, and so they're going to be blocking some guys that are sometimes bigger than them, but they got to be aggressive. And I think overall, the tight ends perimeter blocking was the best they had all year.
Coach, in regards to stacking wins, how important is that in the latter half of the season to kind of stack up some wins to kind of build some momentum?
Yeah, I think it's just playing better. I think every week is a different challenge, and we know we're not getting healthy. From the guys that are out, they're out. You know what I mean? So our guys know what the situation is, and we got some good teams on the schedule. I just want all we got to worry about right now is us. That's what we've done the last couple of weeks. We've worried more about us, like coming off the ball, doing what we're supposed to do, and then trying not to make a lot of mistakes. And then defensively, we can play a whole lot better, but we created some turnovers that made a difference in the game. So that's part of the lesson is we ain't got to play perfect. You're going to make mistakes, and things are going to happen. But if you play with great effort and conviction and everybody's into the game, so to speak, it gives us a shot.
You're in a unique position in that you can compare Scotty and a young Pat White. Their goods, their bads. How are they similar? How are they different? And I mean, I know Pat had a redshirt year, but is there a comparison? And
there is a little bit. I think from their just from their competitiveness, you would say. Like I said, Pat redshirted as a freshman, so if he was playing at true freshman, he would still been a good player, but we'd have really limited what we're doing, and it would have been harder. It was so much better to be able to play him his second year. Scotty was thrust into it, but they still have, whether most summers, their competitive nature, as far as, and I think in their love for football. You believe it or not, we hope everybody that we have on our roster loves football, but there's probably guys that like it and not love it. I want guys that love it and need it. But those two, Pat was that way. He loved it. He wanted to know everything about it. And Scotty's the same way. He loves football. He's and he's growing right in front of our eyes, I think. Again, he's going to know and make mistakes, but he made a couple plays in that game that looked like a 3-year vet, and so he played above his years, and I think Pat did the same thing when he got it. He kind of played above his years when he got his chance too.
That was probably a better runner, obviously.
Yeah, I have no question. Yeah, Pat's one of the best runners ever. The difference with Pat is Pat could outrun a mistake. In other words, he might read the end, and they probably should have gave it, and the end is right there. But Pat is fast enough, athletic enough to make him miss. So Pat can erase a mistake by his speed or athletic ability. Scotty is a good runner, not a great runner, good runner, but Scotty's got next level arm talent. From that as far as his release and getting rid of the football and all that. So we're trying to feature what he does well.
How big is it to get your first road ranked win since 2018 when it comes to building a program? How big is that?
Well, any win is big, but conference games are bigger. They always mean more, other than Pitt, of course. So conference games are bigger, and then road wins are even more rare because of all the things, the travel and the noise, what have you. So that obviously gives us a little confidence. I thought we were playing better, but I thought we'd have to play well and get some breaks to win that game. And that's what happened. We played pretty well, and we got a few breaks, and that allowed us to win that one.
Rich, this is more of a in general thing, which I know what's going on in the sports culture with gambling and those scandals. Have you had to address that with your players at all, just because there has been a tabling of whether college players are able to bet
bring
on
it up.
pro sports?
Yeah, we have when we first start camp in August, and we have our first team meeting, we address a lot of stuff, and that's one of the key points that our compliance and our coaches discuss with our players about the gambling and what's allowed, what's not allowed. I know it's trending that way. I know a lot of colleges are getting sponsorships for their programs through the gambling sites or whatever. I think it makes me a little nervous. I kind of like the fact that our guys can't gamble on anything that's
if they end up passing it, where
Yeah.
players are able to bet on pro sports,
Well,
do you support that?
There's a reason why those gamblers or the gambling sites or the fancy hotels are so nice. Because they're not losing very often. You know what I mean? And I don't know what the percentage is, of gamblers winning, but it's probably not real high. So that would be my advice to, if you're gambling, the gamblers are going to, only bet what you can afford to lose, right? Because you're going to lose. But I also think there's maybe points to where maybe, and I'm not an expert on this. You guys may know better, but the prop bets are what makes everybody nervous, right? The individual, and that stuff makes, I'm not worried about any of my guys or anybody that. I don't worry about anybody in other college teams doing that because they know that it would be like you talk about the worst thing could possibly happen is you doing something like that against your own team, right? But I still think it's maybe if you opened up that little window, maybe it's more going in there. So I like the fact that we had rules against college student athletes gambling on sports that the NCAA sponsors. I thought that was a good, solid rule. Why it's changing, I'm not sure. But I think even the athletes that were on the committee voted not to change it, which usually carries a big impact. So I'm surprised that it actually
the
passed.
SEC as a conference is the one that wants to delay this happening in terms of college athletes
being
able to bet on pro sports.
You wonder why, right? Because they're just trying to help and protect the student athletes, and sometimes you got to help protect somebody from themselves, right? So to me, there's a lot of NCAA rules to this day and in the past that I did not agree with. It's like you could give them 10 years ago, you can give them a bagel but not cream cheese. There's a lot of stuff that was silly, but the rules against gambling, I think, was one that made a lot of sense. So I don't know why. It's got to be some kind of financial thing somewhere for somebody, but why that's being changed now? It seems like that was a good rule, and so who knows.
One more on Saturday. Week 10, there's a lot of unknowns with Colorado. What concerns you most about this game on Saturday?
Well, we're coming off it. Most of the year, everybody's like, "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You guys are terrible. You stink, whatever." And maybe this week they got what Coach Saban would call rat poison. Everybody's telling them how great they are. Hell, we won one game on the road. You know what I mean? And that's it. So it ain't like we put a 10-game winning streak on there. So we could play better than what we did. And so we better realize that.
So the message is repeat what you did?
Yeah, let's do what we did last week in practice. Let's take the same approach when we get in the game. Let's play as hard as we can. And after 60 minutes, look up and see what happened.